All right, future doctors, let's get right into it. If you're prepping for the physician licensure exam, you know MedLegal isn't just another subject. It's basically the operating manual for your entire career. So in this review, we're going to do a high-yield, no-fluff breakdown of 3 laws you absolutely, positively have to know inside and out.
So here's the game plan. We'll kick things off with a quick look at why this is so critical. Then, we're diving deep into the Dangerous Drugs Act. And yes, the specific grams matter. After that, we'll talk about your role in protecting women and children, then explore how traditional medicine fits into the picture, and finally, we'll wrap up with some super practical legal questions you're going to face from day one.
You know, you can think of the med-legal part of the PLE as a kind of legal gauntlet. Passing it isn't just about showing you know your medicine, it's about proving you're ready to handle the huge responsibility that comes with practicing within the law.
I mean, think about it. Every single prescription you write, every diagnosis you make, it all happens right at this crossroads of healthcare and the law. Knowing the rules isn't just a good idea, it's a non-negotiable part of the job. So let's jump into our first big topic. First up is Republic Act 9165, also known as the Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Act. Now, for the PLE, and trust me for your own protection down the line, the details here are everything. The law is incredibly specific, and you can bet the exam questions will be too.
Let's start with a key legal term, possession. It's not as simple as just having something in your pocket. The law actually makes a distinction. There's actual possession, which is what you'd think, direct physical control. But then there's constructive possession, which means you have the power and intent to control a substance, even if it's in your locker or your car.
Okay, eyes on the screen right now. If there's one slide to screenshot, this is it. These are the high-yield numbers you just have to memorize. The most severe penalty, life imprisonment, gets triggered by very specific amounts. 50 grams for shabu, 500 grams for marijuana, and get this, only 10 grams for drugs like cocaine or heroin. These numbers are set in stone and are prime material for exam questions.
So this is where things get really interesting, both for medicine and for the law. Knowing the quantity is one thing, but the law is equally, if not more, obsessed with how that evidence is collected and handled. Because if that procedure isn't followed to the letter, the entire case can just fall apart.
And the answer to that problem is what's called the chain of custody. It is a super strict 4-step process. Step 1, the officer has to immediately mark what's seized. Step 2, they take inventory and photos. Now, Step 3 is the one they love to ask about on exams. It must be done with 3 specific witnesses present: the accused, an elected official, and someone from the DOJ or the media. And finally, every single time that evidence changes hands, it has to be documented. A break in that chain? It can mean everything in court.
Okay, let's shift gears now. We're moving from the really procedural side of drug laws to something that is deeply, deeply human: domestic violence. We're talking about Republic Act 9262, the Anti-Violence Against Women and Children Act. And this law puts you, the physician, right on the front lines of seeing and documenting abuse. Now, under this law, violence isn't just one thing. It has 4 distinct faces. Of course, there's physical harm, but as a doctor, you also need to be able to spot the signs of sexual violence, psychological violence, which can be things like stalking or public humiliation, and even economic abuse, like when someone cuts off financial support to make their partner completely dependent.
This leads us to a landmark case that absolutely changed the game in the Philippines: People versus Genosa. This was huge because, for the first time, the defense team argued for an acquittal using this new concept of battered woman syndrome, saying that her act of killing her husband wasn't murder, but an act of self-defense after years and years of abuse.
And because of groundbreaking cases like Genosa, battered woman syndrome is now actually defined in the law itself, in RA 9262. It's recognized as a real, scientific pattern of symptoms that result from long-term abuse. And this is so important because it legally acknowledges how severe trauma can change a victim's mindset, and that can form the basis of their legal defense.
Okay, for our last law, we're taking another turn. We're looking at Republic Act 8423, better known as the Traditional and Alternative Medicine Act, or TAMA. What this law does is essentially build a bridge between the medicine you're learning in school and the traditional healing practices that have been around for generations, making them part of the official healthcare system.
So, to make sense of this, the law starts by defining its terms. On one side, you have biomedicine. That's pretty much what we call Western or conventional medicine. And on the other side, you have traditional and alternative healthcare, which is this huge umbrella term for basically all the knowledge and practices that exist outside of biomedicine.
And we're not just talking about one or two things here.
The agency in charge, the Philippine Institute of Traditional and Alternative Healthcare, or PITA-HRC, recognizes a whole range of practices. You've got well-known ones like acupuncture and chiropractic, but it also gives a nod to our own traditional practices, especially the Filipino art of hilo.
All right, we've tackled drugs, we've talked about domestic violence, and we've looked at traditional medicine. So now let's bring it all home. How does all this legal theory actually apply to you, the brand new doctor, in your day-to-day work?
Let's kick this off with a question I guarantee every new doctor has. So, you've passed the boards, you have your license, you've got that crisp new prescription pad. But what about that little number at the bottom, the PTR? Is it really that big of a deal?
The answer is a very clear, very loud yes. Your professional tax receipt, your PTR, is an absolute must-have for private practice. The FDA even says you need it for e-prescriptions, and here's a big one, your patients can't get their senior citizen or PWD discounts without your PTR number on that prescription. The only time you're off the hook is if you work only in a government hospital with zero private work on the side. Otherwise, you gotta have it.
At the end of the day, all these laws are so much more than just things to memorize for an exam. They're the ethical and legal foundations of your entire career. As you start this journey, just remember that you're not only a healer, you're also, in many ways, an officer of the court, a protector of the vulnerable, and a steward of the law. So the real question you have to ask yourself is, how are you going to carry that incredible responsibility?